Al tira mipachad pisom, umishoas reshaim kisavo, utzu eitzaves ufar dabru davar velo yakum, ki imanu kel, v'yad zikna anihu, v'yad seva ani espo, ani asisi v'ani esa, v'ani espo v'amaleit, ach tzadikim yoidu l'shmacha, yeshu yisharim espanecha. If you've ever been to a Chabad Minyan, you've heard that song right at the end of the davening. Every Chabad shul in the world ends their davening 3 times a day, Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv, with that song. Where does it come from? Why do we sing it? And why in that order? In this talk, in a Farbrengen in 1966, it was known as one of the wildest Farbrengens ever of the Rebbe. Whoopa, it's getting wild right here. In which a Farbrengen that lasted until 3:30 in the morning, when for 7 hours the Rebbe taught many, many beautiful things. 4 of the teachings of that Farbrengen are published into 4 separate talks, and I'm going to share one of them with you right now, or a portion of one of them, where the Rebbe gleans a beautiful lesson from the Megillah, explains some things that are misunderstood or not understood or questioned or questionable from the Megillah, and also teaches a very important lesson in education. The children are our future. They were our guarantors way back at Matan Torah, at the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, and again in the story of Purim. All that and more. So the Medrash relates the story that when Haman and his entourage, as they left the king Achashverosh, they left the palace with a decree in their hands, signed and sealed, that they have permission to annihilate the Jewish people. He was elated, he was excited, and he went, as they're leaving the palace, who do they bump into if not Mordechai? Mordechai the Jew is there walking, and suddenly Mordechai starts running. He's not running away from them. Mordechai knew everything that was happening. But Mordechai was running because he saw 3 school children, 3 boys who had just left the cheder, their school. And he ran over to them. As they see Mordechai running, chasing these 3 little boys, they chased Mordechai to find out what's so important. What's this conversation he's going to have with them? Mordechai asks the boys, he said, excuse me, so the first one, he says, what did you learn today? The words he used, the Medrash says, psok li psukecha. Psok li psukecha means recite. Quote me your quote. What's your quote for today? Obviously the quote from the Torah that you studied. In those days, and even today, it is customary, if you want to know, get a sign from heaven, you want something to want to connect with a divine, you ask a young child a question, and they can respond with a certain level of prophecy. It doesn't always work, so be careful. But that's the idea. So Mordechai went and asked these boys, said, Psok li psukecha. What did you learn today? So the first boy said, Al tira mipachad pitom, umishoat reshaim kitavo. Do not fear from any sudden fear. Do not be afraid from anything sudden. And from umishoat reshaim, and from the travesties and tragedies that the wicked people want to do to you. When it happens, don't be afraid. Okay, goes to the next boy. What did you learn today? And he said, I'm coming now from cheder, and in the school we learned, they call it Beit Sefer, we learned Torah, and the last pasuk that I studied, these were his words, were Utsu Eitza Vitufar. They will devise a plan, they will scheme a plan, and it will be cancelled. Dabru davar velo yakum. They will speak things against the Jewish people, and it will not come to play. Ki imanu kel, because God is with us. This is what he learned. He asked the third boy, what did you learn? He said, Adzikna anihu. God says, until your old age, I'm with you. I am the one. Anihu, I am the one. Vadseva, anispol, until your older age. Anispol, I will carry you. I will absorb your stuff. Aniasisi, I made you. Aniesa, I will carry you. Anispol, I will take care of you. Different words of taking care of you. Va'amalet, and you will be saved. Something like that, loose translation. Mordechai heard this. And he samach simcha gedola. He rejoiced, a great rejoicing. He was very, very happy. Haman didn't really understand the words that the boys were saying, so he asked Mordechai. He said, why are you so happy? What's this conversation? What's going on? And Mordechai said, I know what's going on with you. I came to see what the truth is, what's really going to happen. And I heard that all your plots will be foiled. All your schemes will be cancelled. And therefore I rejoice. And he laughed his way out. So Mordechai was very happy, and Haman was obviously distressed. But before Mordechai had a chance to leave, Haman said to him, if that's the case, I'll start with the children. I'm going to start with these young children. I will annihilate them first. So both Mordechai and Haman knew of a great Jewish secret, that it's the children, it's the education of the children that makes it or breaks it, that makes the Jewish nation who we are, and it keeps us going. The Rebbe in this talk asked many, many questions. I'm just going to put a few of them here, and we might not answer all of them, but the lesson will be clear. Hopefully. The main question is, looking at the Megillah, the story, right after this, it says that Mordechai went and he clothed himself in sackcloth and ashes, and he cried a great big cry, a big bitter cry, and he was crying, and he spread the word to everyone else to do the same in all the countries, basically in the whole world. And Queen Esther tried to stop him, and it didn't work. So what was going on? If Mordechai was so happy, and he knew that salvation is coming, this is the main question that we'll answer here. Why was he crying? What was he upset about? It's all good. The Rebbe asks also a few more questions on the nuanced details of the Midrash. The Midrash says that there were 3 boys. Why 3? Why is the Midrash telling us details that we don't need to know? And why did the boys recited the verses not in the order in which they appear in the Torah? Altira mipachat pitam is in a later book. Utsuetza, the middle quote, is in a previous book. They're all quotes from the Torah, but they're not in the order. They're not in any order. They're not front to back or back to forward. They're completely disordered. So why that order? And many more. And also the questions that Rabbi asked, why does the Midrash say that the second boy, said, I came from the Cheder, from my school, and I was learning the Torah, and this is what I learned. And this is the pasuk, this is the last pasuk that I studied. So, long story short, let's go back to the stories of Megillah and answer to all these questions. What triggered Haman to want to kill the Jewish people? So the Megillah says very clearly, it says Mordechai wouldn't bow. But it wasn't just Mordechai that wouldn't bow. Why not just kill Mordechai, right? If it was only Mordechai was the problem, Haman would have just killed Mordechai. The Megillah tells us, Ki higidu lo ta'am Mordechai. Haman knew it wasn't Mordechai the Jew who's not bowing. It's the Jewish people. It's the Judaism that doesn't bow to him and to his haughtiness. And therefore, he said, I need to take care of the problem at the core, at the root. I need to take care of the Jews. Mordechai knew this, but Mordechai goes a little deeper. How could this decree even happen? Of course, it didn't happen in the end. It wasn't activated, actually, thank God. But how could it happen that a decree, something negative, should be even spoken about the Jewish people in such a way? So the Midrash and the Talmud tells us that there were Jewish people at the time who did bow to a tzelem. It says they bowed to an image. There are various opinions about what that image was. Most people think it's an image that Haman himself had, a necklace of himself, some kind of idol, and people, as they walked by, they prostrated, they bowed to him. Some people think it's a different kind of image, but the bottom line is, the Talmud says they earned this, in a sense, because they bowed to some kind of idol image. This is related somewhat to the idea that the Jewish people enjoyed themselves in the feast of Ahasuerus, because the Talmud says that they earned destruction because they enjoyed themselves from the feast. So the Rebbe talks about this, and the Rebbe says, if you eat not kosher food, you don't earn destruction. But it wasn't the not kosher food. The problem was that they were enjoying immersing themselves in the culture, in the non-Jewish culture. That was the problem. So it's similar to this. So now Mordechai said, oh, I see, there's this horrible decree on the Jewish people because they bowed to this image, which is a negative, obviously, and that's why they earned this decree. But now, as he's speaking to these children, Mordechai realized that everything's going to be okay, because deep down, it's the children who are going to continue the future, and the children gave him a message, a very optimistic message of God running the world and not being afraid of God, etc., etc. And why did he cry then? Why was Mordechai upset? And did he go out and tear his clothes and put ashes on his head, etc., etc.? Because the Rebbe says Mordechai knew that the spark of the Jew was inside every Jew. And even those who did bow, they only bowed externally. It was only maybe even a polite bow to Haman, even though he was wearing this cross. So it definitely wasn't something that was an internal avodah zarah, like a worshipping of idols. They weren't that far gone. But because it was external and there was something there, they needed to get rid of that too. And because of that, Mordechai needed to awaken the spark inside to fan it into a full-fledged flame of commitment, faith, and trust, and dedication to God that would permeate not just their innards, but also their outside, their external actions, their thought, their speech, and their action. And that's why he went out with this whole display of sadness to show the Jewish people, to wake up the Jewish people, to awaken them to teshuvah, to return to God in a most meaningful way. So both Haman and Mordechai, they knew what the problem was. It was the faith in God, and they knew the solution was the children. Mordechai actually gathered all the children together. Mordechai actually gathered all the children together to pray and to annihilate Haman. That was the whole the response, and that was the solution. He gathered 22,000 children to pray to God. Now the Rebbe going to wrap it up with the explanation of the three psukim. These three verses that we say, Al tira mipachat pisam. Mordechai heard these three verses in the wrong order, not in the chronological order of the children. What Mordechai was extraordinarily happy about was that the second child said, and all of them were on their way out of the Cheder. They were on their way out of the school, and they said, we're bringing this home. This is not just something that we learn at school. It's something that we have with us. We take it outside and we bring it home with us. Bring it home. Bring the children home. Bring the Torah home. And here's the 3 psukim. Says the Rebbe that the 3 verses that the boys told him were actually 3 levels of education, 3 layers of deeper and deeper education that we need to give our children, some of which the children naturally have. The first one was, Al tira mipachad pisam, don't be afraid of a sudden fear, of a sudden tragedy, of a sudden opportunity that seems that it's going to be negative. If something negative comes your way, don't be afraid of it. That's it. It doesn't say why not to be afraid. It just says, don't be afraid. So the Rebbe says that every Jew has a natural faith in God, instinctive belief that God is good and everything is good, and there's no reasoning. It's not even logical. It just is. It's natural, it's instinctive, and we don't, as long as we don't fight it, we're not afraid of anything, just God. And it's similar to what the Baal Shem Tov's father told him on his deathbed. When the Baal Shem Tov was just 5 years old, he said, Yisraelikal, Yisrael, fear no one or nothing but God alone. So this understanding that God is there and we have nothing to fear is a natural thing. We can tell our children about it, but we don't have to explain it to them. They know it. Second level is Utsu Itzav Sufar Dabru Davar Velo Yakum Ki Imanu Kel. They will scheme a scheme or plot a plot, and it will be cancelled, it will be refuted, rebutted. Dabru Davar, they'll say something, Velo Yakum, it won't happen. Ki Imanu Kel, because God is with us. Here's the next level of education of a child who understands more. And here we explain that God protects us, not just when things are happening, like the first verse, but even if they're planning. If people are planning things against us, God foils their plots because God is with us. And here comes a little level of intellect. God is ours. We are God's. And Ki Manukel, because we trust in God, our trust in God makes it happen. So there's a level of interaction over here. We understand that our trust, our being with God, helps God take care of us. That's what we're learning in our Monday night class about trusting God and it actually helping us in a better way, in a more revealed way. And finally, the third one was as you age, I'm with you. As you grow older, I'll take care of you. Ani asisi, I made you. I will carry you. I'll take care of you. Here is a deeper level of understanding where there's no sudden fear, there's no terrorist act, God forbid, and there's no plots that are being foiled, that need to be foiled. We're talking about nature. In the nature, we see that things happen. Tommy, I'll call you right back. In the nature, things happen, and people get old, and people start getting fearful of what's going to happen. Says God, and here we need to bring in a little deeper understanding. Says God, I am nature. I created you. I create you constantly, consistently. I made you. I create you. I will take care of you. You have nothing to fear. And the Rebbe said that just like and there's a lot more, but I have a class right now that I'm late for, so I'm going to dash. But the Rebbe said that just like the children were the guarantors way back when at Matan Torah at Mount Sinai, so too the children were the guarantors of the future and the story of Purim, and they are now our guarantors, and they should be when we educate them in the best possible way. And through the children, we, the adults and the parents, will return back home to God and home to Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem, the rebuilt Jerusalem with the holy Beis Hamikdash. Amen. Kani here at Son. Happy Purim. Happy always. We'll be in touch.